Well, welcome to Unfunny America. Today we have Andy Lame. He is currently a nerd extraordinaire, but also a musician. So welcome to the podcast,
Hey,
Andy.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So just to get it started, you currently work doing tech stuff, right?
Yeah, IT, systems administration.
Yeah. What was that whole journey like, man? Because I know that there's like a lot of certifications and all this other crap that you got to get. How long have you been doing it?
I've been at the job I'm at for it'll be 18 years in September.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, basically, it was, my plan was to be a famous rock and roll star, and dropped out of Appalachian State in the early aughts to do that, and it didn't pay very well, and I wasn't very good, so I in my very early 20s, my parents said, "Hey, if you come back home to Fayetteville, and you can live with us, and we'll help you get through, Fay Tech." So yeah, I got a 2-year associates in information security, and a few certifications like Net Plus.
What certification sucked the most?
The one that was hardest at the time, there was a Cisco one, like a CNAA, I think, or CCNA, Cisco Certified Network Associate. Since then, I've gotten a Security Plus, because that's if you work with the military at all, they pretty much want you to have that.
Yeah. But it's usually artists have to find some way to subsidize their art, right?
Yeah, even the good ones. Yeah, that's
well, right on. So you had mentioned that you came back to Fayetteville and you ended up getting those certs because the musician thing wasn't working out for you. What was it like for you when you first started as a musician?
Well, I was living in Boone, North Carolina, and I had a band up there, and then the rest of the band pretty much graduated and moved on, and then after that, I was doing heavier music, and Boone at the time was really more of a jam bands and things like that, of that ilk. There was other stuff going on, but it wasn't really stuff I was into at the time. And so I was just working, jobs around. I think at the end I was washing dishes in a vegan restaurant and slowly going insane and building debt. And
so you're just you've gotten sucked into this job that you don't want, washing dishes at a vegan restaurant, because what style of music were you playing out there in Boone?
Kind of like pretty much heavy metal. Like, I wanted it to be Sabbathy, but it was, we had a guy, our drummer was from an all white reggae band, but he liked Tool, and our singer was he kind of grew up, liking more of the grunge, but stuff like David Bowie and stuff. I basically found anybody who would play with me. Yeah. And, and we made as heavy music as possible. And those constructs, and it was fun, and we liked it. And
yeah, Boone doesn't seem really a mecca for metal.
No, there's been, it's better now. Like, there's a place up there now called Lily's Snack. And even at the time, there was the Black Cat Burritos, which would have punk and metal shows. And now there's a place called Lily's Snack Bar that does it. And they actually every year they have a big festival called Boonerang, where they try and bring back local artists who have gotten bigger. And it's like a 3-day thing downtown. And then at Lily's Snack Bar at night, they have Doomerang, which is the kind of punk metal side of that, where they bring bands in and they play at night after the main festivals ended.
Right on. Did you hear Oh, was that your phone?
That was
Oh,
my
I'm
phone.
sorry, man.
Sorry
Hey,
about that. Here.
no, I thought it was some of my equipment that I've never heard that beep before. I was like,
I even thought to myself, I should put this on silent before I go into a podcast, and then I proceeded not to. So,
Well, I mean, you saw me. I was actually just now doing that. But, anyway, getting back to it, Boone doesn't seem like a mecca, but it's not, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for something to like start popping up out of a small town like Boone, because you had like, Pantera came from Pantera, Texas, or they named themselves after Pantera, Texas. I guess it's kind of unfair to talk about them in that way. But man, so after you teamed up with these guys in Boone, like how long did you last out there in Boone?
yeah, probably maybe like a year and a half, I something like that. It felt like I don't know. In your 20s, that feels like forever. That
Yeah.
It feels like that's a blip of time, but it felt like a good amount of time at the time. And part of that time I was working at a record store, so that was cool to promote through there, and then lost that job to incompetence and being early 20s. I'm a rock star, drunken slob.
Wow, it sounds like me when I was working at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Except I didn't play an instrument. Do you have any cool road stories? Because I know when you get in the van and you start, did you do any traveling with that band?
No, that was all in Boone. Actually, when I moved back to Fayetteville, Fayetteville had more of a metal scene when I moved back, and I started to get into bands and playing around here. And there was a few. We do out of town stints. Like there's one band I was in where we did a couple of stints out West Virginia and Alabama. Played Birmingham and Montgomery and Auburn, in an RV, and
like a no shit Winnebago.
yeah, a little maybe bigger than a Winnie. I guess an actual Winnebago is pretty big. So yeah, but yeah, in that style. I remember,
Dude, you're traveling high class if you're traveling in something like that in a band that's just starting up.
It was, it wasn't a nice RV. It was, I know both times we went to Alabama, we had an inner tire blow on one of the back axles, and had to wait till we found a tow truck with a big enough jack to. Like one of them was right outside of Talladega, I think, like the weekend of the race. So it was just traffic was crazy, and
Jesus.
I think the biggest part I remember of that was there was me and the drummer got way too drunk the night before the trip, and he was my roommate, so we load into the RV to start out and immediately want to go back to sleep, and then we hit 95. We crossed the North Carolina South Carolina border, which is South Carolina does not take care of their highways as well as North Carolina does. So when you hit 95 in that particular situation, a whole bunch of band gear fell off of a rack and landed on our heads. Which did not help with the hangovers we had.
That's hilarious, man. That's hilarious. So I do remember at one point, excuse me, when I was coming up, it was like, I think I just dropped out of college in Austin, and then I started being a roadie for my friend's band, right? And the furthest I think they ever got from Austin was like Kansas or something like that. But we did this little loop, and they went to Kansas, and then we were coming back through Oklahoma City and coming back into Texas. This is over a couple days. I think it was 2 days. But it was like late at night, man. Late at night, driving down 35, trying to get back to Austin. And we stop at a gas station. It's like one of those gas stations that's in front of a Piggly Wiggly. There's no attendant there. It's like 3:00. The pumps are open, right? I'm just shit-faced, right? shit faced. And so they start pumping gas and everything. And they get done pumping gas. And me and my drunk ass, I'm like, well, there's this big red button right there. Let me see what happens when you push it. So, you know, the big red emergency shutoff button over there next to the gas pumps. Have you ever seen that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, a big alarm goes off whenever you push it. So I figured that out. That all the alarms going off and everything. They're trying to like finish up fueling and all this stuff. It was a madhouse. It was a madhouse. So whenever y'all were traveling in the Winnebago, and you would come back to Fayetteville, like whereabouts would you play here in Fayetteville?
In Fayetteville, you know, Jester's Pub, the Rock Shop, both of its locations, the Drunk Horse Pub. There was a bar here called the Black Cat that was previously the Gaslight in the Gaslight Plaza. The White Rabbit. Those are most of the places that we would play as bands.
The White Rabbit's the only one that's standing, man.
Yeah. It's the only one that's left. There's a few places that are starting to do shows again. There's the Seven Horsemen Billiards, which is right by the Rowan Street Skate Park.
Okay.
I think it used to be Fowler's.
They opened up a pool hall over there, huh?
Yeah, and like they just did. Like Fayetteville's been doing goth nights once a month, and they were at Paul's place, I think, and now which was over near White Rabbit and stuff. Yeah. And now I think they're doing them at Seven Horsemen's Billiards, and I think they announced like a metal show over there.
Oh, nice!
So that's cool. The skate park was starting to do them, but the city owns that area, and they want a lot of hoops to be gone through, like you inspections and permits every time a show, like 6-month lead time. So it's unless it's something really important to somebody and they've got some money behind it, it's not feasible for especially local bands.
Do they want you to get permits and safety checks on the carpets that you put down underneath your amplifiers?
Yeah, it feels like that. I think for them it's probably, you know, fire inspections and stuff like that. And I can't remember exactly what Terry Grimble said. He's the guy who's always run all the skate stuff in this town. And actually he's doing a reggae festival this weekend in Hope Mills, the One Love Reggae Festival.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Are you going to be playing at that thing?
No, I think I'm going to attend though. Dirtbag Ales. That's a place bands play here still.
Yeah. But a lot of the good places have ended up closing down. So once you, so about how old were you when you realized that you had to make some money, and the dream wasn't happening as quickly as you wanted it to?
It's probably 22, 23.
And so you moved back with your folks.
Yeah.
Got your certifications, got a job, and we didn't even mention what instrument it is that you play. What is it that you play?
Guitar.
Okay.
Real original.
It's the Git fiddle, man. It's the Git fiddle. It's the first thing guys pick up. But how much time of a hiatus did you go into?
Actually, I moved before I was out of school, I was playing in bands again. So like one of the bands that we'd get shows for in Boone was from Wilmington. And actually I got into their scene a little bit, filling in a guitar for them for a few shows. And well, damn, I swear I turned this thing off.
Your wife's looking for you.
Let's see. Well, now it says it's off. So we'll try that again. And then, started playing with bands around here. Within a year of moving back, it was, you're in your 20s, you go out to bars and you see other people playing and you talk, and networking's a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's where a lot, at least, especially at the time, I don't think necessarily going to bars and drinking is as popular with the early 20s crowd now as it was, but at the time it seemed like that's what everybody I knew was doing. So
Well, from what I've heard from some of the old timers here in Fayetteville, is that Hay Street actually used to be like a big party scene.
oh yeah, like the 70s and 80s and stuff.
Yeah.
Like maybe even the early 90s. It was before my time, but
Yeah.
like there was where the Airborne Museum is now was a block of, I feel like that was I can't remember the number of the block, but where all the famous like the Seven Doors strip club and stuff like that were.
You can't remember the name of the block, but you remember the name of some of the clubs.
I mean, I've never been to any of these places. Like this was all torn down when I was probably maybe in my early preteens. Like I think maybe Rick's Lounge was still on the outskirts of downtown at the time, and that was it. But there was like, I want to say there was like maybe like a pornographic like movie theater downtown, and every once in a while you'll see pictures of that time that people will post online, or the Observer will post of.
Yeah. Well, usually it's the clean ones from like the 50s and 60s when
Right.
they had like department stores there, So what has it been like for you playing here in the Fayetteville scene?
It's I mean, it's still fun to do. It's one of those things where I'm a dude who likes to go play like a 30 to 45 minute set and then get off and see my friends play. And it's mostly originals and a couple of covers. I feel like there's not a whole lot for that in this town right now. Like I said, like my friends will play like 3 hours of Dirtbag and they'll let me go on and play a couple of songs. Or, if there's every once in a while there'll be a show, say like the White Rabbit, where it's more that like 4 or 5 bands doing that. And I mean, there's bands. I don't feel like people want to see most things that they're not familiar with for 3 hours. If you're doing covers, that makes sense. Like people, you're going to a bar, people wanting to drink and have a good time and party covers. 3 hours makes sense. But for what I do, and there's just not a lot of that in this town right now.
Yeah.
There has been at various points in time, and it seems like it's coming back.
Yeah.
And they're all fine things. It's just that it's if I wanted to do it, like it would, like there was maybe house shows or something like that, which start to get a little weirder in your 40s. But
yeah, why don't you just show up and play a house party? Yeah, it'd be a good time.
yeah.
So do you think part of the problem is just the separation of all those different venues that keeps people from coming out and exploring different types of genres? Because like if you're in 6th Street, like in Austin, right? You just go walking down the street. Well, if you're in one place and you don't like the reggae that's being played there, you go right next door to the piano bar and you get some covers there, and then you go right next door and now you're at a place called Joe's Generic. So it's like these local blues acts. Do you think that the separation has something to do with it? And
I mean, Austin. I've never been to Austin, so this is my opinions on Austin are totally from what I've talked to about people. But it seems like that's a music scene that's there's maybe like 10 or 15 like it in the country, and it's so I think there's a lot between there and Fayetteville where it's still more conducive to different kinds of music.
Mhm.
I think in Fayetteville, but the separation, yes, in that it feels like downtown curates a certain, like our downtown feels like it's smaller than a lot of comparable towns. Like Fayetteville is technically a bigger town than Wilmington. If you go downtown in Wilmington, there's a lot more going on. And Fayetteville's worked on that very hard. I mean, we've got the baseball stadium now. It's much more conducive for families coming down and doing stuff. At the same time, in downtown Fayetteville, things end at 10 o'clock. you don't see bars having shows with bands playing from out of town where,
Yeah.
where the things, maybe one or two bars close at 2 on the weekends in downtown. I'm not but I'm not sure. It's generally I'm gone from downtown by 10, 11 midnight because there's nothing down there at that point. And it feels like conventional wisdom has stated that the old money in Haymont and stuff wants it that way. Maybe the city wants it that way. I'm not really sure what their stance on it is, but whatever the case is, it's generally been that way. When I first got back, there was some stuff going on at Husk Hardware, and when they do festivals like the Zombie Walk or something, they'll have local bands play that, which is cool.
I will say that I was out there at the Dogwood Festival this year before the shooting. And
I was actually out there when the gunshots went off, but
Jesus. But if you're not at All America Park, where the main stage is,
right,
there's really an opportunity to have more music available, like at each major intersection or something, instead of bookending it at All America Park and then
Person Street, I think, on the other.
Yeah, so that whole route. No music.
I know at a certain point, like Cool Springs, who they run a lot of that stuff. I think you can get, I don't know if it's called a busking permit for those events, but you can get certain street corners in between and sign up for that. So I know they do let some performers do that. And at Festival Park, they had, Fear State played, and they're pretty beloved local institution. Bernie's, he runs the Dragon's Lair on Yadkin, or Dragon's Den, the comic book store.
What kind of music is Fear State?
Fear State's metal.
Okay.
Like they do covers and originals, and it's
they
Bernie.
Had a metal band play a Dogwood Festival?
Yeah, Bernie smashed a bass on stage
this year.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, and it's him and a couple of his younger relatives who are in another local band. One of them's in another local band called Crooked Cult, who's like a thrash metal band, and they actually do really. I mean, they probably play more out of Fayetteville than they do in Fayetteville. They play cool shows all in this region. I think they've been up to Richmond, the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Wilmington, all those spots.
Right on. So in your infinite wisdom and your experience, if you had the opportunity to go back and do your musical career all over again, but you were still here in Fayetteville, where would you start?
Like venue-wise, or like what steps would I take?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, what steps would you take?
I might have gone to vocational. I don't know. I feel like I developed. Music-wise. Yeah. I feel like I'm happy with the steps I took. If I wanted to be more successful, I probably would have just gotten out there and crashed on people's couches and
Now I want to be clear. I'm not saying that you're not happy with your current position. I was just curious if you had the opportunity to start over as a musician here in Fayetteville. What that would look like. Like if somebody sees this video, right? What sort of advice would you impart upon them if they are a burgeoning musician?
I think the best advice I could give is that go out there and when I see somebody who wants to go and be a professional touring musician that's young, there's been several times where I've bought them a book. It's called Our Band Could Be Your Life, and it covers the bands in the 80s that kind of forged the circuit of DIY touring bands like Black Flag and the Butthole Surfers, Dinosaur Jr., and tells the stories. And I remember reading that book in my 20s and thinking, wow, this is really hard. I don't know if I really do want to do this, or if I just want to be good enough to play shows with people I like and get on slots opening for bands that I love, and then just have a good job and pay a mortgage.
So what was that book called again?
Our Band Could Be Your Life.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote it, but it's a pretty well known book.
I remember being out at Spiker, or Cobb Spiker, 2006, 2007 time frame. Somebody recommended me Get in the Van.
Yeah, that's another one I've heard a lot of. I haven't read that one, but I've heard it's a great book.
Listen, I got about 3/4 of the way through that book, and I was like, there is absolutely no way I would be able to stomach it. Some of the stories that Rollins tells in there are just like, there's no fucking way.
Yeah, like there's parts of Black Flag where it's like he hated them and they hated him, and he would just on tour he would be in the U-Haul attachment in the dark, just from show to show, which couldn't have put him in any better of a mood. And then get spit on by people who liked what he was doing, and or just like sleeping in an RV, let alone a van, or on floors. That was, even in my 20s, that wasn't necessarily pleasant.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the reasons you tried to get as drunk and messed up as you could, was that so you could go to sleep. And
or the occasional night where you had a room at the Red Roof.
Yeah. Yeah, which, oh man, at this age, that's just as bad on my back as a floor. Like those, or you walk in and you see a clipped toenail hanging off the comforter, and you're like, yeah, I don't, yeah.
Jesus. So you want folks to read that book, but let's say that they're not big fans of reading,
Oh, then I'd say go out and, I don't think being good enough is the problem for most people who make music. I think there's plenty of people who are successful at all sorts of levels of skill. It's just at a certain point, there's certain doors you have to decide to walk through and bullshit that you have to deal with, which is the stuff that would be described in that book, like being on tour, being in a closed, confined space for long periods of time with people that you are probably getting along with less and less as the time goes on, just because anybody in that situation, most people need space, and you don't get enough of that. And also you're relying on each other for survival, and you're probably very poor. And if you're lucky, breaking even from these tours, if not, being in the red, and not losing gear or breaking gear or, vehicles. And, hopefully at the end of that, you've got your name out there enough to go out and do it again with people you like. And, if you can do that for who knows how long, maybe you can do that long enough to get your name out and then pay rent, but not have health insurance. And like there's a documentary I've watched a few times, kind of about the stoner sludge metal scene, where it covers all my heroes, and then it has the part where it's like it goes through and it's like, Matt Pike from High on Fire and Sleep, who's like one of my heroes, and he's like, yeah, I still don't have health insurance, and when I'm at home, when I get off tour from Portland, I'm doing construction, and that documentary is 10 years old. It might be better for him now, but he's one of those. I mean, he does, pretty big tours for that style of music. He's pretty well known. So if he's doing that into his 40s, then there's a lot of people underneath that are also, best case scenario, like you're going to get a cool job where you're like working for, a music store, or you run your own music store or record store, and, you do stuff like that to supplement, or you're an artist and, you're successful getting commissions, making art for your friends but yeah, that's what I would tell people is, you do it and see if it's going to be worth it. And if it's not, that's okay.
How do you think So back in the day, every once in a while, my friends would talk about every once in a while at their shows that an agent from such and such label would be there, or a representative would be there. What sort of impact do you think the internet and the ease and access of making your own content? Uh, what sort of impact do you think that's had on the music scene?
It, I mean, yeah, I think it clearly gives individuals more power. It also gives it also means there's way more voices to be heard.
Yeah,
You know, so you can be anywhere, and if you're savvy with that stuff, and people like it, then and they share it, and other people like it, then yeah, there's a chance for you to do things without necessarily having, the gatekeepers of the industry that were, so important 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, yeah, things are also way more fragmented now. It's hard for there to be, radio is not as popular as there's no one universal thing that everybody listens to. So there's no way to, if you can somehow get it there, that everyone's going to hear you. And then a percentage of people are going to say, well, since it was on here and I heard it, this is good. And I'm going to, you know, to buy it.
yeah.
Or just the way people don't buy as much, the music is streamed mostly now. I mean, there's other formats. I mean, everything's coming back. Vinyl's been back for a long time. That's probably the number one selling format now, but people are getting CDs again. There's a whole resurgence of, there's whole labels that just do releases on cassette tapes.
So speaking of CDs coming back, I try to make a trip weekly down there to Roundabout Records, just so
or Back Around.
Yeah, Back Around Records, just so I can get some of either the older CDs that I forgot to buy or replacement CDs. There's something cathartic and relaxing about opening up the jewel case, putting it, like listening to the little of the little CD player, and all that stuff. So I love doing that. I'm one of those weirdos, I guess. Vinyl, I don't think I'm going to pick that up. I never picked it up.
I don't have the space for vinyl. Like to have a separate system with, where I have like a bunch of room for vinyl and for the turntable and a power amp and a preamp and all that stuff. I have a tiny house and I have too much gear as it is.
What does your gear look like? What does your rig look like?
I mean, for most of what I do now, my daily driver's like a little blue Chinese guitar but it was the cheapest carbon fiber guitar I could find. I wanted to be able to keep it in my truck at work so I could just jam out over lunch and practice and not have to worry about it being warped by humidity or temperature changes. And I liked it so much, it ended up being my gigging guitar. It's a little electric acoustic. The brand is Lava Me. So LAVA and ME.
Lava Me.
It definitely sounds like like a foreign, interpretation of English that, like something you see on a shirt in Japan, like
bad English.
Yeah. But it plays great, and it went from metal stuff. I got a bunch of old, I've got, some Gibsons. Like I got a Firebird, I got a SG, I got a Strat that's really set up more like a Gibson. Like I'm not a big fan of whammy bars and tremolos and stuff. I just find it gets stuff out of tune more than I like using that and doing dive bombs and stuff. So I like simple things.
Yeah.
Amps, I have loud old amps, like a Sunn SUNN. I've got it's like 74 Model T. It's ungodly loud.
Does it go to 11?
It should. I should relabel the knobs.
Just take a marker, put an 11 right there.
Yeah, I got a Mesa Boogie. I got a little high watt, like a little 5 watt one. there's a company called Hovercraft that is popular out in the, I think it's out from the Portland area, where they kind of repurpose old like amps and then kind of rebuild them is kind of for like sludgy heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And
So when's the next time when's your next show?
the next show in town right now is next Wednesday, June 4th, I think. Or
Oh, are you doing the Art Attack?
yeah, I'm doing the Art Attack next Wednesday. It's being hosted by my friend Christy Howard. You may have known her through the comedy stuff.
No.
But
I'm more comedy adjacent. Like
Okay.
that's Willis Madden. Like that's the term that he kind of described me as, and I'm like, that's exactly where I'm at. I'm just I'm around those circles, not necessarily in them.
that's fair. But yeah, she hasn't done much recently, but she was doing when the Drunk Horse was doing comedy out there
Yeah.
on a weekly or monthly basis. She did a lot of those shows. And but yeah, she's hosting the next Art Attack, and she generally she sells a lot of art out there and stuff too. She does tarot readings. She's done that at Festival Park for a few events, and a really cool person. Anyway, yeah, she's hosting next week, and I'm playing, and I'm not sure who else is playing yet, but I'm sure I'll find out.
Well, all right, man. I appreciate the time that you've taken to stop by the place, man.
Oh yeah, and thanks again for having me.
Yeah, man.